Hello, and welcome to part 1 of the video for Unit 4, where we talk about strings of characters, and return methods that return some sort of information to where you called it. So to start off, we're going to use the demo code from Unit 4 as usual, and let's start off with the one called basics.java. All basics does is show us how we can create a string to be stored in memory and then printed out at our convenience. For example, well, there are actually two ways of doing so. We can just declare the string, right, give it a name, and in quotes is what we want the string to contain. We've seen strings in quotes before. The other way is to declare it as a string, give it a name, and then use the new command. We've seen this when we create objects. The string really is an object built up of individual characters, and that's what allows the length to vary as we make shorter or longer strings. Either way is fine. The new string part is optional, but is generally recommended. And once you create a string, you can print it out just by referring to the name. So we have string S, which is comp sci, the string called champ, the word rules, and then we print it out, both of them with a space in between. And as you will see, we get both strings, even though we saved them in different ways. And we get the space in between from the print line. A string just really is an ordered set of characters. The name of the variable is, again, a reference like it is with objects. It points to the location of where the characters are stored, and they do have a position which keeps them in the right orders. The one thing to keep in mind, the first character, what we call the first character, is in position 0. So it's positions 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and 6. And when we say position, we'll often use the word index, as we'll see in a few minutes. So again, the name of the variable, right, stores the address, the location of the string in memory. Right? The actual string is stored outside of that, and the name is what points to that. There are some methods associated with strings. The length, if you want the length of the string. Substring, we'll see, you can look for and take out specific portions of a string. Index of, when you're looking for something in a string, it'll tell you the position. And toString we will see in part 2 of the video. Let's go to length.java. So in length.java, we have created the string S again, the word comp sci, and then on that string called S, we use the method length. S.length is the notation for it. And what that method does is return an integer telling us how many characters are in it. So when we print out S, we get the original message. Right? And when we print out len, right, that's the length, there are 7 characters. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. So if ever you need the length of a string, the length method will return that as an integer for you. Now keep in mind the positions, the indexes, are off by 1. It's from 0 to 6. But the length is just the number of characters. Counted in the conventional way, there are 7 of them. And I use the phrase return method because that method returns a piece of information for us. Right? When you run the length method on S, it sends back an integer. Right? And we stored that as an integer with the name len, which allows us to print it out next, in the next step. Let's go to char_at, another method you can use for strings when you want to choose a particular character out of the string. So again, we create the string. The method char_at returns to us a character, and that character is the character at position 0. So in this case, it would be the first character. And again, because it returns it as a char, we can save it, print it later, and it is flexible in that if we don't want to save it, we just want to print it, we can do that directly. So the char_at 0, we saved and then printed out. The other two, we just put the char_at command directly into the print statements. So you don't have to save it. It returns the character and prints it out. So what is the character at position 2? Well, that would be the M. And so it prints it out here. Okay. What would be the character at position 6? Is the letter at the end, which is the I. So even though you can save it, if all you need it is for immediate purposes, you can just go directly to that. It prints it out for you. And again, when we talk about char_at, we're talking about the index or position that starts at index 0, and the last one would be index 6. Now, from time to time, we may want more than just an individual character, and that's what the substring command does. We can grab out of a string any number of characters that we want, and that can be done in 2 different ways. So let's go to substring and see what we have. So again, we create the string, okay, and we're creating the substring that we're going to yank out of the word comp_sci. It doesn't have anything in it yet, so we're making it blank, and we'll create it as we go through. There are 2 versions of the substring command or method. Right? If you can have one parameter in there, such as this one. What that does is take everything from index 3 to the end. So 0, 1, 2, 3. So it'll start at index 3 and give you everything from there to the end. Likewise, one parameter, just the number 4, will give you everything from position 4 to the end. And we can demonstrate that. So the letter P is at position 3, and so it gives us everything from position 3 to the end. The letter S is at position 4, and so with that method call, we get everything from the letter S to the end. So if you just give it one parameter, one integer, it will give you everything from that position to the end of the string. If you just need part of the string and not everything to the end, there's a version of it where you give it 2 parameters. And what that does is, this first parameter is where it starts reading the substring, and then it will go up to, but not including, the 3 here. So 0, 3 will give you whatever is in positions 0, 1, and 2, but not including the endpoint 3. That's where COM came from. Substring 2, 5 will give you everything in positions 2, 3, and 4, again, not including the right end. So we get the MPS, which is position 2, 3, and 4. Likewise, Substring 4 comma 6 gives you 4 and 5, but not position 6. Hence it returns the SC. And notice, as opposed to the char at method, which returns a single character, this returns any number of characters, and thus has to be stored as a string rather than a char. And again, remember the numbering system starts at 0, and the last position will be the length minus 1. So substring 3 starts at position 3, goes to the end. Substring 4 starts at position 4, goes to the end. Substring 0 comma 3 gives you 0, 1, and 2, but not position 3. Substring 2 comma 5 gives you 2, 3, and 4, but not position 5. And last but not least, 4 comma 6 gives you 4 and 5, but not comma 6. So it starts where it says it starts, but it ends one position before that. Index of will tell you the position of something. You tell it to look for it. It finds it in the string. It tells you where it's located. The index means the same thing as position. So let's go to indexof.java. So again, we have the string called S. So what we're asking here is find the MP in comp sci and tell me what position, what index that starts at. So MP starts here, so position 0, 1, and 2. So it can be multiple characters. It would be in double quotes like a string. Okay? But it will give you the index of where it starts. So this starts with the M. The M is here at position 2, so it returns the integer 2. Now, index of a single character. It's looking for this C, and what index of does is return the location of the first instance of that. There are 2 C's in here. It returns the index of the first C, which is index 0 or position 0. But there are more than one C in the string, but index of always returns the index of the first occurrence. Now, if you look for something that's not there, right, there is no X in comp sci, so it can't find it. If you ever look for something that's not in the string, it will still return an integer rather than an error, but that integer will be -1. Now, that does make sense. It is a nonsense value. There is no position -1 in the string. So when programming, rather than give you an error and the program crashing, it just tells you nicely it is in position -1, which is not a position, therefore it's not in the string. Likewise, with more than one character, PM, there is an MP, but there is no PM, literally, in the string. Thus, it will not be found. Thus, it will return the value -1. And again, it's easier than having an error statement in your program crash. When you write code, what we'll do is account for the fact that -1 means it's not in there, but you can always rely on getting that value, -1, when there's no such string or character in the string you're searching. The other version of that is last index of. That gives you the index of the last occurrence of whatever you're looking for. Index of gives you the first occurrence. Last index of gives you the index or position of the last C in the string in this case. So it'll tell you where the last C is. Now, if you remember, index of C gave us a 0 because there was a C at the beginning. Last index of gives us a 5 because that's where the last C is. If there were other C's in the beginning, it would still give you the 5. Excuse me. If there were other C's in between those two, index of would still give you the 0 because it's the first one. Last index of would still give you the 5 because it's the last one. There is no middle index of, just index of for the first one, last index of for the last one. And if the string or character you're looking for only occurs once, then you would get the same result either way. Right? The string OMP occurs in comp sci right here. Where does it begin? Well, with the O at index 1, so it returns the value 1. Okay. Even though it takes up positions 1, 2, and 3, it returns the starting point, position 1. Concatenate. Concatenate is a fancy word for join. When you join two strings together in a programming language, you have concatenated those two strings. Share that term with your English teacher. I'm sure they will be very proud of you. And there are actually two ways of concatenating strings. One is with a plus sign. Now with two numbers, plus means the conventional addition. But with two strings, there's no concept of addition other than to stick one on the end of the other one. So we have string 1, COMP, and string 2, dash dude. Substring 0, 4 of the string 1 means characters in positions 0, 1, 2, and 3. 0, 1, 2, and 3. In this case, happens to be the whole thing. So we get COMP plus dash dude. And when you run it, it joins them together in a string equivalent of addition. Comp plus dash dude gives you comp dude. The length of that concatenation, still calculated in the regular, what you would expect, counts up the number of characters in this case, and that includes the dash. There are 9 characters in comp dude. The other way to concatenate, there is a method called concat. It takes the string S and concatenates whatever string you refer to in here. So at this point in the program, S is comp dude. We then concatenate string 2. So we get the resulting string comp dude dash dude. And we called that string what? The length of that string, again, count up the number of characters, you'll see that there are 14 characters in that string. So either way will work. Concat is the method that returns a new string. Plus is, well, it's the closest thing we have to addition when we're talking about strings. We just stick one on the end of the other. Either will concatenate two properly formed strings. Okay. That ends video number 1. Intermission. Stand up, take a stretch, get a glass of water, and then do the questions on the Check for Understanding worksheet to convince yourself that you understand how these methods work. If you have trouble, there's a key at the bottom of the sheet. If you have trouble with them, you can contact me or bring questions in class. Thank you for listening. After you've done the Check for Understanding worksheet, then go to video part 2. It's only a few minutes, but it is material I want you to see before coming to class. Thank you for listening.